I welcome you to this channel. It's Save the Education, Save a Child, Preserve Humanity television. From Save the Education and Health of the Child Foundation, we got a TV program we call Save the Education, Save a Child, Preserve Humanity. Once again, I welcome us, to this program. I'm telling you, I enjoy you to stay tuned. I'm telling you to this live. I will call it chat or live program, and I encourage you. To make sure as you stay glued, please make sure you like this channel. Make sure you comment. Don't just comment. Make sure you subscribe, because as you subscribe, you are telling. That is beautiful. That is meant to be emulated. And as you subscribe, don't just subscribe, share, because our channel is going to get to every nook and cranny of the world. People in America, people in India, people in America, people in Canada, people in Africa, all over the world are watching us. So wherever you are watching us right now, I say welcome, 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 and stay tuned, because you are going to get value for every time that you are going to be, spending with us here. Remember, I used to say this, each time you hear me on this channel, I always talk about the Nigerian situation. Number one, I have to make it emphatically clear. Number one, I'm a Nigerian, a bona fide Nigerian. Nigeria is my nativity, my place of nativity, and I'm proud to be a Nigerian. And I want to say it here categorically clear, I'm not a politician, neither am I a religious man. What is religiosity? Religiosity, when you talk about religiosity, is having a form of godliness and denying the power thereof. So I'm far from that. I'm not a religious person. I'm just here. My focal point or my interest is one child. So I want to make you understand that you cannot have a place for the child when the environment is not conducive. See, no one raises a child under a gruesome atmosphere. No one raises a child under an atmosphere that is not conducive. So that's why you always hear me talk about a new Nigeria. Permit me to say that when you hear me talk about a new Nigeria of my dream, it's actually a vision. It's a vision that God has impressed in my heart 27 years ago, and I've been holding it. It has been incubated in my heart, and I'm looking forward to how it must be given back to. What am I trying to say? I believe this present Nigeria that we find ourselves right now is dead. It's nothing to talk about. It's nothing you can write home about it. But there's a new Nigeria, which God Himself is the builder, is the maker, and the founder. That is the new Nigeria of my dream, and I believe is a reality. That's why I always enjoy you, whatever you are. You hear me heralding a new Nigeria of my dream. Please believe me, because all things, with God, all things are possible. I'm telling you, with God, all things are possible. Because why? This present Nigeria has been messed up. So God is going to roll this old Nigeria like a mat. Fold it and throw it into the sea. And you see an emergence of a new Nigeria. Just like in the Bible says there's a new Jerusalem. So anything you don't look forward to, you don't get it. So once again, I enjoin you to, each time you hear me herald this new Nigeria, it's a vision. The genesis of a vision is a man, but its accomplishment is a people. A man heralded, like John the Baptist in River Jordan, heralded the coming of Jesus Christ. He heralded the coming of Jesus Christ. When Jesus was about to come, he said, I baptize you with water, but he that is to come, he's going to baptize you with the Holy Spirit. So I'm telling you, I'm only heralding what God is about to do. You better believe it. I'm telling you, and it's going to be a reality in your life. So today I'm going to be talking about defining who a child is. That's to tell you that we're going proper into what this NGO is all about. Suffice me to remind you again, the name of the NGO is Save the Education and Health of the Child Foundation, which means our focal point or our focus here in this NGO is the education and health of the child in all its ramifications. That's why you always hear me say I'm a human rights activist for the child in the area of his education and health, because there must be someone that is standing and saying the education and the health of the child must not be jeopardized. That's the whole essence of this NGO. You see, we are talking about Save the Education Ahead of the Child Foundation. So, like I said, today actually I'll be looking at who a child is. Most of us don't really know the definition of who a child is. But let me, before I go there, suffice me to still talk more on this NGO. Because anything that you don't know, is you don't judge a book by its cover. Because why? You have not read you have not seen the content of that book. Until you go read the content of that book, you digest it very well and you scrutinize it very well with the right mindset, you will not know what that book is talking about. You see, they say powerful drugs come in small doses. So don't you confuse the nature of how that drug came by the power that is embedded in it. So powerful drugs come in small doses. So don't you judge a book by just the cover, but try to see the content of that book. I'm telling you, I'm trusting to you right now a book. This is a book. Say the Education Ahead of the Child Foundation is a book that is gradually unfolding. So, Save Education, one of our vision here is projecting the child for tomorrow. We are projecting the child of today for tomorrow, and our mission actually is giving the children of this generation and generation yet unborn a form of, a sense of belonging. By making sure that we make them to discover their potential and also find expression in it. Every child you see is looking for expression. We must give them the desired expression that they need. So as you come, I welcome you as you come to join us right now in this, time of moment that we'll be talking about the child. I'm not going. There's no way you can talk about the child without saying the things that affect the child. You see, every child is affected one way or the other, and that is called abuse. What am I trying to say? What affects the child, how the child is being misused. Well, we got it from the word child abuse. So I'm going to define who a child is and also let you know how you can abuse one child. There's a child that could be under your care and you're abusing that child without you knowing it. And you are taking that child for granted, because every child has a right to live. Every child has a right to remain. Every child has a right to go to school. Every child has a right to good health. Every child has a right to good environment. So when you are denying the child of all these I've just mentioned and many more, you are abusing the child. So you're welcome. Let me go straight. Who is a child? Actually, the definition of who a child is actually still growing. From our definition, who a child is still growing, because, like I said, the definition of a child it varies from place to place, from one geographical location to the other. So what you call abuse in Africa is not what it's obtainable in Europe and America. So the definition of who a child is varies from one geographical location to the other. But for necessity's sake, for our consumption, we're going to be looking critically for where we find ourselves in Africa, in Nigeria. We're going to be, I know people are watching us from different parts of the world. We are going to be looking at who a child actually is. A child could be seen as a young being. What does that mean? Either it's a boy or a girl. It's seen as a young being who is not yet an adult. Who is not yet an adult. So a child, somebody could be called a child who is not yet an adult. As long as somebody is not yet an adult, is a child. A child could be seen, or a child also, is under parental guardian and tutors and governors until an appointed time when he or she can find expression. So anybody that's still under a guardian and a parent, and under tutorial, teachings and all that, is still a child until he comes of age to find expression in himself. For example, in the Western world, a child is defined as anyone who is below the age of 18. In the Western world, a child is defined as someone that is below the age of 18. And what, from our definition right now, we now know who a child is. So if you have a word under you that is in Africa right now is below 18, is a child. So you should know how you treat them. Don't treat them like an adult. So you treat adults like adults, and you treat children like children. Don't give add adult things to children. You'll be abusing them. That's one form of abuse that we must actually look into. But right now, what is abuse? Let's look at it critically. What is abuse? I mean, the general term, the you always hear the word abuse when you say something is, you abuse something, you abuse a drug, you abuse the way you are driving, you abuse a certain privilege. But from the English word, let's look at the word abuse. What is abuse? Abuse is the wrongful use of anything. Abuse is the wrongful use of anything. You know, child abuse also is an act of ill treatment on a child. So from our definition, abuse is the wrongful use of anything. So if you use a child wrongfully, you have abused him. Imagine a man that drinks to stupor. You have abused the alcohol. You have not used it according to prescription. You know, they'll tell you that there are some drugs that are not meant, they keep it out of the reach of children. It's meant for adults. So when you don't keep some certain things, away from children, you're abusing that children. If you look at a drug, you want to take a drug, they'll tell you keep out of the reach of children, because it doesn't belong to children. So when you are keeping it within their reach, then you are abusing them, because that drug is meant for adults, not for children. So from our definition, the wrongful use of anything is called abuse. So when you use a child wrongfully, you have definitely abused that child. You have definitely abused that child. Abuse, in short, is a general and global phenomenon worldwide, but different from one geographical location to the other. Like we have earlier said, it's different from one geographical location to the other. For example, what the white man calls abuse, some Africans might not see it as abuse. So you see what location can do. What a white man calls abuse, an African will not see it as abuse. For example, parents cannot be talking while the children are talking. In Africa, it's an abuse. It's an offense. But in Europe, you see them sitting down with their children, and they are talking as if they are mates. But in Africa, where we find ourselves, our culture does not agree for that, because we know in Africa we believe so much in 8th grade. So when a child is a child, it should be kept out of discussion of adults. You know, so but the white men don't see it like that. For example, what the white men call abuse, some Africans might not see it as abuse. For instance, a child that is exposed to child labor, that is asking him to do that which is beyond his age. We allow child abuse in where we find ourselves in Africa here. Don't we send our children to go and sell granuts for us? Don't we send our children, to go and, hawk for us? Don't we send our children on errands? That adults are supposed to go. Don't we send our children to go and fetch? All these are forms of abuse, child labor. You dare not do that in Western world. But because of where we find ourselves in Africa, we don't see it as an abuse. So we send our children to go and sell things for us. They go to hawk. That is called child labor. Worldwide, they see it as an abuse. But because of the geographical location where we find ourselves, we overlook these things, and we are, in that time you are bringing the child under. So we should begin to know when we are abusing the child and when we are not abusing the child. It does not allow for sound mind when you send the child to go and hawk. It does not allow for sound mind in the child. The child is also exposed to so much danger, especially at this season that we find ourselves in, where we find ourselves right in Africa, in Nigeria. Let me be specific, where there's so much insecurity. Parents still send their children to go and hawk pure water. Parents we have seen where children are being abused on the process of sending them to the street. The dangers of where we find ourselves in a country like Nigeria right now. Children are being used for sacrifice, because why? We send them to the street at an early age when they've not been able, to take care of themselves. We expose them. So child labor exposes our children to danger on many occasions, because like we said here, their minds are not, matured yet to handle the things that we expose them to. The child is also exposed to so much danger. It also set them to corruption, stealing, and rape. We have seen children that are raped because they send them to the street, especially the girl child. But some parents in Africa accept it as a way of what generating income for the family. You see, like I said, we said earlier from our definition, what you call abuse in Africa might not be what they call in abuse in the Western world. We send our children to go and hug because we felt they should generate income in the home. But that's an abuse. Globally, they see it as an abuse. That child mind has not well developed, so it shouldn't be exposed to the harsh reality of of the society that we find out. They've not been fully incorporated, because a home is where a child is being groomed. A home is where a child is being taught. How to behave, how to relate, how to be. How to comport themselves. But when we send them into the street at an early age, that we are sending them, exposing them to the harsh reality of where they find themselves. That in itself is an abuse that we need to look into. It's not the best. But Africans still see they send their children so that the children can contribute. It's wrong. And for taking care of the child's necessary needs, we send them so that the child can also contribute for his own needs. The white man does not accept this. As long as one is under the age of 18 years old, it is the sole responsibility of the parents to provide for the needs of the child. A child is a child. You can't debunk that fact. As long as that child is a child, it's the sole responsibility of the parent to provide for that child. But because of the poverty rate in where we find ourselves in Africa, we tend to send the child as a form of child labor, to help in the home. That is an abuse. What we're trying to say here, we're agreeing with the term, is that it's a form of abuse, because the child is still still under parent and governors for such a time that his brain is developed. The child should not be a contributor in provision of money for the upkeep of the home. And what we do in Africa, so it's wrong for we to send our children, to the street. It's like sending them to early grave. That is abuse itself. So you see, abuse has so much, negative vices that does not allow the child, to become who he is supposed to be. Does not help the child to grow to the fullness of what God has designed him to be. Abuse does not allow the child to psychologically, spiritually, and otherwise to be formed the way he's supposed to form. We expose them to the harsh economic reality and harsh insecurity in the country, especially in Nigeria, where we find so much insecurity in the land. So we should desist from it as parents, exposing our children to danger, killing the next generation, terminating the next generation. Cutting short, a whole vibrant generation that is coming to take over. And this has caused, so much damage in a country, in countries in Africa, because we abuse our children, without we bothering and without we bulging. We are calling as an NGO that parents should desist from this, no matter what it is, so that we will not lose the next generation. Well, you might ask, the abused and the abuser. Who is the abused and the abuser? Who is the abused and the abuser? Who is the abused and the abuser? We're looking at the child as the one that is what? That is abused. And the abuser as the one that inflicts the abuse on the child. Who is the abused? We're looking at the abuser as the one that inflicts the abuse on the child, and we're looking at the one that is abused as the child that is being abused. Let's take them, one by one. We'll take our time to break it down so that we can have an understanding of what we are saying here. The abuser. Let's look at the abuser. Those that abuse these children are faced differently and from different sets of people based on the persons that have direct influence over them. The abusers exert almost total control over the victims, who is the child. Most abusers are members of the victim's family. Most of the children that are being abused are abused by their parents. Most of the children that are abused are being abused by by their own parents in the family setting. They could either be caretakers, parents, or close relatives. Some children are sent out to go and live with other older adults who also abuse them severally. The abuse they face includes physical, emotional, sexual, verbal abuse, and child neglect. These are all forms of abuse that the child faces. We are going to be looking this in the course of this study. We'll be looking at the different forms of abuse that our children go through and how we can overcome them, and also the effect it has on our children. But let's look at this. Reasons why they abusers inflict abuses. Why is the reason? What is the reason? The basic reason why the abusers, which are parents, family members, loved ones, abuse these children. Why did they abuse these children? Why did they abuse the children? We are going to be looking at it categorically. Let's look at it. There's no good and accepted reason why a child should be abused. There's no good or cogent reason why a child should be abused. Some of the causes of this abuse from caretakers include pressure on the family. Imagine there's so much pressure in where we find ourselves in a place like Nigeria, where there's economic strangulation. There's so much. The economy is harsh on families. I'm telling you, some parents give birth in Africa, where we find ourselves. We give birth to so many children, we can't take care of them. So if we cannot take care of our children, there's a tendency for abuse to emerge. When you have the children so crowded in the home, you can't take care of them. Abuse is one of the evident things that you notice in the homes. Some of the causes of this abuse from caretakers include what? Pressure on family, alcohol, drug abuse, social isolation, which lead to parental stress. It increases the chances that make parents strike out on their children. It increases the chances that make parents to strike on their children. When there is too much undue expectation by an adult from a child with learning or behavioral problems, mental ill child, because mental illness in the child, such child is likely to be abused or neglected. An adult that was abused as a child or has physical or has psychological or medical problem have every tendency to easily abuse their own children. What are we trying to say here is that somebody that has gone through abuse while is a child, there's a likelihood that he's being affected psychologically and medically. So when such a person grows up, you see them also rendering the same abuse to their own children. What are we trying to say here? Which means abuse is a generational thing. Could be. It's a generational thing if it's not handled well spiritually. What am I trying to say? A child that is abused and does not have spiritual nourishing has a tendency of abusing their own children. So abuse is something that creeps in the pattern of the blood, if not well handled as one is growing up. Abuse is something that we should not treat with kid gloves. It's growing, it's mutating, it's growing from one generation to the other. I'm telling you, we need to we will not handle it on time. It has a way of we losing a whole generation. How do we lose a whole generation? The parents of abused children has a tendency of also rendering inflicting abuses on their own children. So we should look at that very well and know how to handle it in our society that we find ourselves, especially in this economic situation we find ourselves in Africa. There's so much displacement of economic hardship in the country, in Africa, and the parents tends to abuse their children because there's not enough resources and finances to take care of the children. So you see children are under pressure, and that tends to them being abused. So we should look into that area. But let's look at this now. Types of abuse. What are the various types of abuse that we have? We have physical abuse, we have sexual abuse, we have emotional abuse, We have verbal abuse. We also have neglect. These are all forms of abuse that is being inflicted on the child. These are different forms of abuse, but rarely do they ever occur separately. For example, physical and sexual abuse normally will not occur without the person's emotion being affected. Did they actually occur at the same time? No. Physical and sexual abuse normally will not occur without the parents' emotions being affected. Imagine a child that gets pregnant. It's not only the child that's affected, the parents are also affected physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So that needs to be looked at. In sexual abuse, the abuser employ, use, persuade, entices, or what? Coerce the child to engage or to assist another person into sexual explicit conduct or stimulate such conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction of such conduct. Example: molestation, prostitution, incest with children. You see families sleeping with their children. Parents sleeping with their children. It's uncalled for. That's incest. Most children who suffer sexual abuse often suffer physical injustice. 2. Sexual abusers are mostly men. Men and women inflict physical and emotional abuse, while women make up most of the cases of neglect, especially single mothers. These are issues we are going to be looking at as time goes on. The issue of single motherhood, raising a child by a single parent, is not good for the child. A child is supposed to be raised in a home. A home is not a house. A home is where a family, children are being nurtured. They are nurtured with love, with all the love that the child needs. They are nurtured with caring. They are nurtured with all it takes to raise a family. A house is where the family lives in. A house is a building that has furniture in it. Let's differentiate the two. A home is not a house. A home is when love, is meant to express itself. A house is where the family stays. So single motherhood is not the best for every child. A child needs, the guardians, the love of the father and the mother. That will make the child to grow well. As he grows up, he grows with everything that the child needs. Men who neglect their responsibilities to their families or even run away from the family are also guilty of this victim of emotional, physical, sexual, verbal abuse and neglect. Neglect experience psychological damage that can last a lifetime in the child. We've seen children life being damaged. Damaged. It also has a way of distorting the child's thought. It puts so much physical stress on the child. The above mentioned kinds of abuse deprive the child the ability to form relationship. Every child needs a healthy relationship. But when you take them through the scrutiny of such an abuse, they are deprived of healthy relationship. Remember, our mission in this foundation is giving the child of this generation and generation yet unborn a sense of hope and direction as we empower them to express themselves. A child cannot express himself or herself when she's under emotional depression, when they cannot relate with their peers. So we speak against it, which is an emotional imbalance. They do not also know how to enter into and maintain good relationship, even in their jobs, later in life and at homes. You see, some children cannot mix up with the crowd. You see, some children cannot mix up with the extended family. A child is not just raised in the home to remain in the home. They will go into the world, and as they go into the world, they mix up with the larger crowd, which is the earth that they see out there, the people that they meet out there. They mix up. So when a child is not well taken care of from the home they come from, it affects them psychologically, spiritually, physically, emotionally. I mean, otherwise, that's what they are saying here. They are not, they are not well equipped to face the world. That's why you see some children, they draw to themselves. They have this emotional imbalance. They are not able to face the challenges that they see over there in the world, in the outside world. You see, the outside world is a bigger world, while the home where the child is raised is a smaller home. So if he has not gotten all it takes to raise him from the home, there's an imbalance. For the child he's going to face problem in the outside world there. That's why we have children, that cannot help themselves. You see them go into, different vices. We have seen children go into drugs just to correct that imbalance that was not gotten from the home. So what are we trying to say? Please, we should desist from the abuse of the child. It has so much effect on the child, like I've mentioned, psychologically, emotionally, physically, name it, all the vices. It will not make us develop good leaders of tomorrow. But let's look at it this way. Effect of abuse on a child. What is the effect? Let's look at the effect of abuse on any child. Abuse causes or leave a lot of psychological effect on the child. The various forms of abuse that we have enumerated so far has its own separate negative effect on the child, the child concerned on all sphere. Abuse increases the risk of having all of the below symptoms and more. What are the symptoms? Abuse has a way of increasing the risk of having all the below symptoms we are going to mention about. Number one, academic difficulties. You see some children that cannot do well in school. It's abuse. Aggressive behavior. Some children are aggressive in their approach. Don't blame them. It's from the home they are coming from. They are aggressive in their approach in the society. They've not been able to be inculcated from the home. So when they go face the larger society, they become aggressive. They cannot help the situation in which they find themselves because that's not the put there. The problem was also anxiety. The problem of attention problem. Some children, you see them, they want so much attention because they've not got attention. Bad dreams. Abuse has a way of inflicting the child with bad dreams. You have bad bedwetting. We've seen children that wet bed even at old age of 15, 16, 17. I met a pharmacist. He told me my child at 15 still bedwet. What is that telling me? The child has not been well taken care of while growing up as a child. When as he's growing up, his mind is still being affected. When your mind is not in place, it has a way of affecting you on all areas. So bedwetting, if you see a child bedwetting at a late age, it could be a problem of child abuse. Also, behavioral problems. Some children cannot behave themselves well. We have chronic pain from past abuses. We have compulsive sexual behaviors. Some children are very rash. They can't control their emotions. Concentration problems. Some children cannot concentrate in class. It's abuse. Depression. Some children are depressed. You are depressed from the home you are coming from. What about you facing the larger society? What happens? Problem in children. Disassociation state. Some children pull away from the crowd. They can't mix up. It starts from home. Because why? They were not taught how to mix up at home. So when they face the challenge of the big world, they can't help themselves. Failure to work, to thrive. Some children don't do well in the big society. Because why? They've not been taught how to do well from the home they came from. Children also have fear or shyness. Shyness is not from God. Fear. Let me bring it spiritually. The Bible says God has not given us the spirit of fear, neither has He given us the spirit of timidity, but that of love, of power, and of a sound mind. So when you see a child that is full of so much fear, it's timidity. It's not from God. He has not been well groomed by the word of God from where it's coming from. So please, we should give our children a room to come away from every form of vices of shyness and fear. Fear of certain adults. There's some children that cannot face some adults or places. Some children are not normal. They are not free. When they go out there, they can't comport themselves. It's abuse that has inflicted it on them. You have frequent injuries. Some children are not normal. Any small thing they injure themselves. They are not calculated from home. Living problems. There are some children that are problem children. It starts from the home. Some children lie. Because if we have not cultured them with the word of God, there's a tendency that they will lie. Some children lie. It starts from the home. Some children have panic attacks. You see them easily, they are easily afraid. They see things attacking them physically. It's a form of abuse from the home. Some children have physical symptoms like headaches from trouble of the home. We see running away. So you see some children running away, they are not stable, they can't stay. It's from the home. Some have self-neglect. It's from the home that they came from. Some have social withdrawal. Some cannot mix up with their peers. They withdraw from the large crowd. They have difficulty to similarly abusive situation. All these vices make the child, exposed to abuses. We must look at this and know how, to bring our children out of it. Severe number of people die because of these vices they've gone through. They are injured. They are molested yearly as a result of abuse. This is what abuse there. We have lost children because of one abuse or the other. Those that survive it pass it on to their children. Even those that survive abuse passes it into their children without even knowing it. Staying under them or even their own children. If solution is not profound. If solution is not profound, they pass it to the next generation. Passing the buck, they say, to the next generation. So we must desist from every form of abuse. When abuse is not stopped, the victim becomes aggressive, fight back at the abuser, and sometimes get out of control and take to the streets. When abuse is not desist from, we have seen children that under governors and guardians, and the guardians feel because it's not their children, they abuse them sexually, physically, otherwise, and when the children cannot help it, they tend to run away from those homes, looking for succor, looking for where they can find comfort. We've seen children, run out of the home because of one form of abuse or the other. The future of the street child is not certain based on the kind of abuse inflicted on the child. The future of the street child. Who is a street child? A street child is one that finds the whole of the major part of his life in the street. They are not under parents and guardians, so their life is lived on the street. They work to feed themselves. They roam the streets day and night. They find succor and comfort in the street. They sleep in the street. Those are street children. The future of those children are under, tension. They are under, abusive state of mind. It's going to pose a problem. So we are talking about the various forms of abuse, types of abuse. We might not take all today. For time's sake, we'll be taking a break because you can't exhaust the whole of this, topic in just one sitting. So I will take time so that we can digest this which has been taught already. We can go back and sit down and look at all these various forms of abuse that I've enumerated here. I know how to, to help the child come out from every form of abuse on one way or the other. Like we have seen, abuse does not help the child in any way. Abuse does not add to the child in any way. Abuse does not contribute to the growth of the child. A child is supposed to be raised in a home. I said earlier when I was teaching, a home is not a house. A home is where love thrives. A home is where a child is cultured. A home is where everything that the child ought to be is being inputted in him. So whatever we don't impute in our child from home, the world will give it to them out there. And I'm telling you, when the world gives it to them out there, they don't become better children, but they become a nuisance to our society. That's why you see all forms of crime in all over our world today. You see children going into crime. early crime. You see them going into rituals. You see them going into, all forms of, you know, discrimination. They are being discriminated upon. You see them, not doing well. Any child that is abused from home, and it's, the only thing, they drive them to the street, they don't become better adults. So we are using this opportunity to talk to parents and guardians and governors that you have children under your care. Please take care of one child, because any children that is placed under your care is not your child. Let me make it categorically clear. Every child that is born to this world by a parent, that child does not belong to you. That child belongs is a child of God. That's why they said every child that does not have a home, hand him over to the government. God permits it. Every child that does not have a home is a government child. So every child that God has given under your custody, one thing you must put in your mind, that is not your child. You are only a caretaker and a custodian. You will give an account of how you raise this child. So once again, thank you for joining me. I might not call your name. You're just joining me now. I say I appreciate you for staying tuned to us this life. I'm telling you, you'll not regret it as you are with us. I enjoy you to go and like, to go and comment. As you comment, make sure you subscribe. As you subscribe, make sure you share. And tell me, you'll be doing so much, for so much to what we are sharing here. So as we see people keep turning up, I think we will endeavor. Somebody's telling me, can you just keep the teaching going on? So people are urging me, please don't stop. We are just joining. Okay, I will heed. Well, let me continue from where I stopped, because people are saying, please, we want to get more of this teaching. Okay. Measures of eradicating child abuse. Let's look at the measures of eradicating child abuse in our society. Thank you for tuning in and for staying, please. There are so much ways we can do away with child abuse in our society. Someone will say abuse of the child has become an old tradition amongst us. What does that mean? From time immemorial, our children have been abused. But does that mean it's going to stay with us? We cannot stop it completely, but we are canvassing, or we are advocating. That's the word. We are advocating that child abuse should be eradicated. Child abuse should be minimized amongst our children in our home. But let's look at the measures of eradicating child abuse. One of the measures of eradicating child abuse are this. We should have enlightenment campaign against the various forms of child abuse through workshops, seminars, and conferences. We should eradicate abuse through the electronic and print medias. Examples: radios, television, newspapers, magazines, and through the internet. Just like what we are doing right now, we are educating you to stay away from the abuse of the child. We can also do this by teaching against it in churches and other group religious gatherings. Number 4, reporting of all authorities and government agencies and culprits brought to law will help a great deal. When you see something, say something. Let me pause here and say it again. In Africa here, we have a way of raising our children. It is said in Africa that it's not only the parent that raises a child. In Africa of yesterday, not today. Because Africa has become corrupt and bastardized. Let me be specific in Nigeria. It's not only one parent that is that is designed to take care of a child. In those days, in the Nigeria of the days when we were children growing up, children are taken care of by our neighbors. What do I mean? When you see a child, when a parent is not there and a child is doing the wrong thing, like he's smoking, and you, a neighbor, come across that child, you will call the child, and you don't just caution him alone. Even we see the standard whereby the child is being beaten. Beating will not kill that child. The Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. When you scold and beat the child, you are beating the child on behalf of the parent. Beating the child, correcting him, telling him, why are you doing such a silly thing? But it's not in Africa of today. Please understand what I'm trying to say. It's not in Africa today. It's not in Nigeria of today. You don't beat another man's child. When you beat a child that is doing something wrong of today in Nigeria, the parent will ask you, why are you beating my child? It's my child. Are you supposed to correct him? I'm the one that gave birth to him. In Africa, we are losing some values. We are losing some values because of the ages that we find ourselves right now. All we are saying is that a child is a God-given, gift to every parent. It's not only one parent that trains the child. The society is meant to train the child. The parent is meant to train the child. The school is meant to train. That's why we send our children to school. School are meant to groom the child. We send our children to the school because we want other teachers and pupils to mentor them. So mentoring of the child is not only left to only the parents. Why do you send your children to school? Because you want them to be groomed by other hands. So when your child is being corrected and being beaten for one crime, what I'm trying to say, being corrected and being beaten for one crime, you don't get angry by it. We're not saying our children should be abused at school or anywhere by mishandling them. What we are saying is that they should be corrected when they are wrong. Please correct our children when they are wrong, but don't kill them. The Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. That does not mean that you use the rod to kill the child, but if you spare the rod, you will spoil the child. The child will go bananas. So correcting the child is a way of bringing up the child and not abusing him. Mind you, I'm talking about measures of eradicating child abuse in our society. Reporting of all cases, like I said, of abuse to the appropriate authorities and government agencies and corporates brought to law. Government should wage war against all forms of abuse and discrimination against the child. Like what we are doing right now, we are waging a war against all forms of abuse and discrimination against the child. Please watch out, parents. Don't abuse our children. Don't abuse your word. Don't abuse that responsibility put under your care. God will ask you. The government will ask you. I will ask you. Government should also wage war against all forms of abuse and discrimination. Victims of any form of abuse should report cases to adults that can be of help or to any appropriate authorities. If you are abused as a child, please report your case. Remember, a child, someone that is below 18 is a child. So if you are abused in the home, please report your case to the police. Report your case to the appropriate authority. Come and report it to us. We'll drop our phone numbers to you. We'll drop where you can meet with us and abuse you. In any way, as a child, you have been abused. We'll help you get out of it. Supporting of NGOs like ours with finances to facilitate their advocacy and work and campaign against all forms of abuse and discrimination. On this note, I take this time to please appeal to government to support Save the Education and Health of the Child Foundation so that we can help to eradicate child abuse in our society. These are one of the things we are doing. We are organizing seminars, we are organizing workshops to eradicate and to also disabuse every form of abuse that is being inflicted upon the child. Please support us in any way that you can. Please, thank you if you are just joining us in this channel right now. This is Save a Child, Preserve Humanity TV. The topic again I'm talking about is the child and how the child is being abused. Please, if you are joining us, make sure you like. As you are liking, you are helping us to promote this work. We are saying other people should also come and see what we are doing here. As you like, you make sure you comment. As you comment, people see you comment. They also want to comment. They want to see what we are doing here. As you comment, make sure you subscribe. As you are subscribing, you are saying this work to get to another level. As you subscribe, you also share. You are taking us to another level. You are taking this work to the next level. So I endeavor to say thank you, and you have value for every time you are spending with us here. You will not regret it. I'm telling you, you will enjoy every bit of it as you come along with us. So let's look at the advantages of stopping abuse in our world. What are the advantages? Excuse me. What are the advantages of stopping abuse in our world? The negative effect of child abuse would be minimized. We will have people in this society with free and sound minds when we stop abuse. We will have a world with less aggression and crime when we stop abuse. We will have transference of effect of abuse from victims to other children. We will stop the transference of effects of abuse from victims to other children. Will be stopped. Number 5, the web and claim of abuse will be cut, will be out. This will drastically stop abuse in our society. So we're encouraging people to stop abuse. There will be one better relationship between parents, guardians, caregivers, and also the children when we stop abuse, every form of abuse in our society. The child and discrimination. The child and discrimination. What is discrimination? Discrimination in our context that we are looking at discrimination in relation to child abuse. Child discrimination is a way of showing special preferences among children. This happens both at home and at school. Don't you prefer one child to the other? It's wrong. You are discriminating from the children. This affects